Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. We have a great program this morning, remote workplace, best practices. Two housekeeping items before we start. First, we have everybody on mute. We ask you to stay on mute throughout the presentation. And secondly, there will be time for questions at the end, and we do ask that you use the chat feature to submit questions. Our speaker today has been a tremendous supporter of me and the Chamber. He's a longtime Chamber trustee. He's a member of our Education and Public Policy Committees. He has served on the Chamber Board, and he sponsors our Public Service Award. He has a great deal of experience creating technology solutions, working for the U.S. Navy, technology companies, and in recent years, running his own IT firm. Ladies and gentlemen, the President and CEO of Computer Business Consultants, Clinton Pownall.
Good morning. Thank you, Dave. Good morning, everybody. So this morning we're here to discuss remote web workplace, which given the current situation is become predominant in today's workforce. I believe it's going to be here to stay for a while, and I appreciate everybody attending. I'm going to go over several items of things, and then I'm going to delve into several topics that I'll touch upon in the beginning to elaborate. As Dave said, feel free to ask questions in the chat. And after the seminar or after the presentation, I'll go ahead and answer any of your questions. So some of the things that you need to consider initially is when we start moving the workforce from an office environment to homes or distributed areas, you're not working from the office anymore. And so some of the concerns now are, is your home protected as securely as your office would be? It's a network, it's not protected. Families have children with laptops and computers and could potentially have malware that could infect the devices that ultimately can affect the offices. Also, that more attention needs to be paid towards clicking any phishing links and email links. So there's concerns of security. You've got to be a lot more cognizant of working when you're remotely working as opposed to the control when you're at your home. Some other concerns that you might want to look at are the seamless operations of the business and lack of disruption. Telephones is a big one. Cell phones is great, but having your inter-office communications using extensions helps immensely. Switching over to video chat, switching over to chat applications. So if you need to talk to a coworker quickly, these are areas that should be considered. And the technology at your office, albeit may already be present. So to switch an entire workforce with a workforce over to a remote workplace may not be as difficult as most businesses, especially small businesses, think it is. Most businesses already have in place a firewall. A lot of their applications are already cloud-based, such as if you have the QuickBooks Online, file access to the Office 365 application, and other applications is also something that you may want to look into. We have various, I'm going to pull up a slide here for you. We have various opportunities for your different types of file sharing. So if you're having a situation and you need to get access to your files and need to do this on a distributed shared environment as opposed to being a centralized office, these are some of these applications, and none of these here are any better than the other as far as what I'm recommending, but these are some options. These are some of the best ones, the top 5. OneDrive and Google Drive, which is Google Docs, the iCloud or Dropbox, and Amazon Workdocs. Will also enable you to share your applications and share your files. So going through all this, the other concern is, of course, is how do you have remote access to the other corporate resources? Say, for example, a lot of medical facilities, they are still in operation. They're doing remote video diagnosis, but they need access to the health records, which are usually contained within the office in an application or server. So these are some of the concerns that we easily can be overcome, especially, as I said, most of the technology is already in place in businesses. It's just a matter of turning it on and getting the know-how and ensuring that everything is secure. Most employees already have adequate internet capabilities in their homes to make working a viable solution. The internet companies, a lot of them, especially in the last month or so, are offering to give you higher internet access for free for the next few months just to help overcome this. And you just need to contact your internet provider They're also reducing the amount of maintenance, trying to do maintenance at night. I had a lengthy discussion with Comcast on this. So they've switched a lot of what they normally would bring residentials down during the day, with the exception of Amanda yesterday, right? And she had an outage. So as I said, the internet providers and internet companies are being very, very cooperative on this. Something that's a major concern that a lot of businesses are starting to come up with, something that they haven't had to develop in the past, are a thorough policy outlining remote workplaces and guidelines. My company, Computer Business, has been fortunate that we've been actually offering remote workplace as a benefit to our employees, as opposed to, or including with, for example, PTO or sick time. We give 15 days a year already as remote benefit to any employee that's been with the company for more than 2 years. So that there were certain restrictions to that. They could only do it on Tuesday, Thursdays, couldn't combine it with PTO, that kind of thing. But where that was advantageous to us is if we had an employee, say, for example, that was waiting on a vendor, that maybe they needed an appliance repair fix, and the appliance repairman would be there between 9 and 12, that kind of thing. The employees could go home, work from home all day, take a remote workplace day, still get paid, still be productive, and only step out for the time that they needed to interface with that vendor. And for us, it was very advantageous. A lot of businesses have already also had remote workplace in place for some of their senior business owners, the senior management. So these kind of things have already been instituted. Some of the things to consider for a policy for remote workplace, we say, for example, our employees, they must maintain a full-time connection to the Computer Business Network when operating out of a non-Computer Business secured network, meaning that if they aren't at a client site that is secure, they need to connect up to into our network and stay connected to our network at all times, so we can ensure that their devices are protected and that we have control. Employees that are working outside must be as if they're working from the office. In other words, their demeanor, the availability, etc. It's basically their desk is no longer 3,000 feet away. Their desk is now 3 miles away. Checking in and out with their supervisors, we require that if they have to step away for long periods of time, or if they're going to take their lunch break, they've got to let their employers know or their supervisors know. We also instruct our employees to maintain a safe and remote working environment. That's actually in our policy that they are mandated to do that. They are also to maintain a professional image while they're in the office or while they're remotely working, especially since a lot of what we're doing now in order to overcome a lot of the visual cues that are no longer present when we're doing remote workplace, we're remotely video conferencing with our clients, and we still want to maintain the image of the company. The other concerns are the remote use of protected information, intellectual property, protected health information, those kind of things. So, for example, bringing up the medical facilities again, they are now doing something that was not done before and bringing protected health information into their homes. So there has to be some concerns as to how do you utilize that information and how is it disposed of if, for example, they print it. And then can make sure there's a tight control. So there are some concerns of HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, which is financial firms, investment firms have to be maintained by. And a final one is if you're doing credit card processing from your home now, as opposed to being in the office, you need to ensure that whatever it is you're doing or how you're doing it is going to maintain PCI compliancy. As of right now, I have not heard one credit card company go after any individual or any organization and say, well, we need to do tests now that you're working from home. I think everybody's in this boat and everyone's understanding that these are things that as this becomes the norm, and this is going to be with us for at least a few more months for sure, that the remote workplace security policies are in place and PCI compliance and everything is addressed. Some of the other things that we actually consider within our organization are violations of the remote workplace may result in temporary or permanent revocation of the remote workplace. We do still have a skeletal crew in the office. For us, we are required. We're also an essential business. We also support law enforcement, but IT in itself is an essential business. But we will revoke it and terminate it. We have enough empty offices that I will simply have no issue with putting an employee back in the office if they violate any of the policies or cannot be relied on to work independently. Fortunately for us, the type of nature of industry that we are in, our particular employees work very, very well independently, self-starters, self-motivated. So that's a concern for a lot of other organizations. Employees themselves, they must determine their own tax implications. You are using your house as your office. There's an entire slew of things to be considered for that: government laws, restrictions, working out of homes, that kind of thing. We do place the responsibility on the employee if they want to do a home office deduction. That's up to them to do that. They need to contact their own accountant. That may or may not change as the workforce progresses along, and remote workplace may become the norm for the future, regardless if we're in a pandemic. Employees are responsible for the maintenance and repairs of their own privately owned equipment. Some of our office staff have removed their office desk chairs and placed them at home. Given the nature of what we do, we have some high-end furniture as far as chairs and so forth. So they've brought some of that home, but they're still using their desks. They're still using their utilities, the internet, all the costs associated with that, and all the for the occupation of the remote workplace is going to fall solely on the employees. And in the event an employee is unable to remotely work due to utility outages, their workspace, I don't know, their desk crashes, whatever, the issued equipment failures, for example, their laptop stopped working, the policy is they're notify their direct supervisor, and the supervisor will make the call whether or not they're to come back into the office. Again, I want to overemphasize this. Our office is strictly in compliance with CDC. We have hourly wipe downs. We have bleach bottles in the kitchen and bathrooms that are after use. You're required to spray down all the fixtures that you've utilized and touched, and then we have Clorox wipes everywhere. So the office, even though we are having a skeleton crew, we are maintaining CDC compliancy with all this. So the other option is, and we actually had a remote employee take a PTO. I'm not sure where he went, maybe the kitchen or the living room, but they took the day off. The other option, there are other policies that you might need to consider, is a company issued devices. So we've always had a company issued devices policy given the nature of our business. All our employees are issued cell phones, they're issued laptops, computer equipment. It's their responsibility that it's maintained in a safe and secure manner, that they are responsible for it. The recipients of these devices are encouraged to consider the corporate image. For example, not to deface the laptops or put vulgar screensavers and so forth on them. They're to ensure the security of devices as well. In other words, don't leave them on the front seat of the cars while you go inside the store for smash and grabs, that kind of thing. We prohibit the use of issued devices that will cause any distractions, especially, for example, cell phones, texting while driving. We have an entire policy on that anyways. But using your laptop while you're distracted or operating heavy equipment. We have a whole entire paragraph designed just for lost and damaged reporting, how they go about that. And then the big one is restricting personal or other business use on our company issued devices. We literally had a situation with a doctor that we gave them. This is a high-end facility they utilize for radiology reading, and we issued one of the high-end workstations. It's a $5,400 reading station for imaging, and sent it to his house, and his kid got a hold of it and put it all into a gaming machine, and also installed malware to the point we had to reinstall the entire operating system and reinstall everything. So needless to say, the senior partners of this firm billed the doctor the $750 it took us to have to reformat this machine. But there's a concern with that, as well as not letting unauthorized users onto company-issued devices. So other concerns of remote workplace, this has been discussed quite often. I hear this a lot, is how do you manage your remote staff? This is a cultural change from the top down. We personally have daily management supervisor meetings. Everybody checks in when they first come into the office, if you will, virtually. They check in with their immediate supervisor via email or chat and say, hey, I'm here. Then they start doing their daily work. What we've instituted is a 1:30 meeting. Not everybody can be on it. Certain people are in middle tasks, especially the nature of what we do for support and IT support, so they may be on a support call. However, we have a 1:30 meeting. It lasts maybe 20 minutes, and just everybody gets together. It's kind of good. They kind of know what everybody's working on. It's a team effort, and so utilizing the video resources on a remote workplace environment has proven to be very, very advantageous to us. Providing other essential resources is another concern. As I mentioned earlier, we have our employees they're taking their desk chairs home, any other equipment. We've actually issued a couple of our employees firewalls so they could take a firewall home and connect up to our office on an always-on connection, utilizing a firewall site to site. And I'll be discussing that a little later on how that can be done. And also, the reason you want to keep track of this is another issue is the device remote furniture inventory, or device inventory. Is if something happens, they have a catastrophic event at their homes. We know exactly what's where, and we can, for insurance reasons, and as well as for asset inventory reasons for ourselves. So that leads me to, what do businesses need, or what do you need as a business to have this? And there, as I said, the resources needed to make the workforce remote ready are already in place for most organizations. In some cases, businesses are going to have to do something they've never have done before, and they're going to have to open up their computer network to be accessible by the outside world. That is the first concern and the first obstacle that you need to tackle in order to ensure that you are securely and have everything in place allowing remote access into your office, into your network, into your office resources. To ensure the security integrity of the company, the internal network and so forth before the outside access, everything must be, as I said, secure. If access is required, typically we recommend an up-to-date firewall with full security services that enables us to control the in and out access, what's being shared. Other things too, we can limit, and all this is possible, we can limit types of emails, we can scan emails, and we do this already for the majority of our health health providers, is we scan any emails, any records, anything coming out of the organization with Social Security's, something called an MPIN number, which is your Medicaid number, and other known numbers, date of births, that kind of thing, and we scan these and then block them. So these are some of the things that can get instituted. And again, relatively easy. None of this is that sophisticated now. A lot of this has been in development for over the past 20 years and has come to be just a standard configuration. And very, very important consideration, especially if you're utilizing home devices to do business with now, is all of our clients have what's called endpoint protection. That's formally known as antivirus. It's endpoint protection is antivirus on steroids. We have a lot more to deal with now with endpoint protection on than just viruses. You have ransomware, we have malware. I'll discuss this a little bit. We have viruses now, especially given the age of the video conferencing, that are taking over cameras and taking over audio and microphones. So EP or endpoint protection is designed to tackle all of this. It also provides the ability to have these devices protected, instituting firewall rules within the device itself. So if you do happen to, say, for example, not today, but if you were in a public place like a Starbucks and you had your laptop planted there, the endpoint protection would stop anybody trying to hack into your computer because you're on the same network as they are if you're in a public environment. And the final thing is to consider, and this should be considered at all points for any business, is secure encrypted backups. By the mere fact that the backups are encrypted themselves means that when the ransomware, if you did get hit with ransomware, you can't encrypt an encrypted file. They can change the name, but they can't encrypt it. Because in order to encrypt it, you have to have access to it, and by the mere fact that it's encrypted, you can't get access to the data files. So these are things that should be concerned for smaller businesses. Maybe for example, we have a healthcare broker. She's a one-person show. We're not going to go stick out there, $10,000 backup solution for them. We have thumb drives that we utilize for backups, or USB drives that we encrypt. That can be done. The thumb drives themselves can be encrypted, and on top of that, we have a thumb drive that we issue to all our law enforcement agencies that actually has a punch code on it. You put in a code and get access to the device that way. So if you're doing, say, your QuickBooks backups or your Word and Excel documents and you want them backed up, you should be backing them up to an encrypted device. And that should be whether or not we're doing this in a remote environment or not. If there's anything, basically the policy is with us and all of our clients that we enforce is if there's anything that's mobile or any media that can be moved, it's encrypted. And again, that's not very hard to do. Microsoft itself on Windows 10, for example, has the ability to encrypt these drives built into it. And it's a very simple thing to do once you know how to do it. So the next step is that's what the businesses need. You address what do the employees need, what resources do you have to give. The most important thing to address on this would be to have VPN connections. Now, what a VPN is, depending on what device the employees are issued, will also depend on how the remote workplace is deployed. Well, VPN, many of you may have heard this before, it stands for Virtual Private Network. It's a connection to allow access to the corporate and office resources. That's basically what it is a way for you to get a secured encrypted connection that connects and extends the office network into the network that you're at, or if it's a device that's connecting into the device. So it has the appearance that you are actually connected to the office on the office network. The VPNs can only be accessed by the originating device and the organization's network. We can get further and you can get to a granular level where you can restrict certain devices within the office network to have access to the VPN connected devices. Another benefit of VPNs, or virtual private networks, is we have the ability to force the employee to use the office's internet connection whenever they're doing any surfing. Therefore, they're adhering to our security policies that are in place within our office. Some to address are content filtering. For example, content filtering is we do not allow access to hacking sites or porn sites or any other sites that are deemed detrimental. And by forcing now the connected device or employee connected devices into that policy, whenever, for example, if they went to whatismyip.com, or you can Google what is my IP, they will have the presence of being connected and displayed as our office. We do this, by the way, wide for a majority of our clients that are connecting up, so they're forced to be connected into the office environment. Also, you get the benefits of what's called gateway antivirus, which is basically a gate guard at the door. So if you accidentally click something or try to download something, say from Dropbox, that happens to be malicious, the firewall will pick that up and prevent you from being able to download it. So there are the tools and pluses to utilizing VPN. Typically, VPN is utilized when we are deploying a already company-issued laptop, or in some cases, a company-issued controlled device, such as we would put in workstations or PCs at homes, which we've been doing for years, regardless of what's going on with the current pandemic. This has become, obviously, several of our clients have moved their entire workforces to their homes. Some have been issued devices, some have taken their desktop computers home, others are utilizing their personal computers, and we'll get into that in a second, how that's done and how we securely ensure that that's happening. In some instances, as I mentioned before, we can place a firewall at the remote location, which, by the way, is how we set up offices with multiple locations. You do what's called a site-to-site VPN, where the entire network from one location is accessible by the network of the other location. This is utilized usually when we have always-on connections that are required, and also when you have multiple resources. For example, some of the medical facilities that we're dealing with, they have to have 2 or 3 different workstations. So we could bring up the mammography or the radiology companies. They have mammography machines, and these mammo machines have anything you load on a mammo machine is restricted by FDA compliancy, and we just can't go loading a VPN connection on. VPN connections are not FDA compliant. They feel that they'll interfere with the mammography reads, and so we have a site-to-site VPN connection set up where the mammography workstation, and we actually have deployed some mammography remote workstations to radiologists' homes as well, which work, and it works very, very well. So taking into consideration, if we're going to utilize personal devices, your own laptops or home personal computers, these lots, in some cases, the personal computer are shared by multiple members of the family, so we have concerns if there's malware on there. We have concerns if the security is in place. So what we will do at this point is install what's called a remote agent. And these are much more complicated than the Log Me In, which some of you may be familiar with, where you're able to get into your desktop. Those are not very secure. They aren't restrictive. They allow sharing back and forth. There's no contingencies on what information can be pulled off and on. Remote agent tools, this is where we use the employee's device to gain access to their workstation in their office. This allows the employee secure access to their office workstation and acts as if they're in the office utilizing the office workstation. It's very fast. It's secure. We allow for remote printing capabilities. Similar, by the way, VPN can do that. So that's another issue that's been addressed. How do I print from home? How do I print my home computer from the office resources? And the final thing there's an advantageous to remote agents is we have the ability for management audits. So managers can come in onto the workstations, make sure their employees are working, make sure that what they're doing. We also have the ability to see management reports where we can see exactly when the person accessed their desktops, how long they were on for, whether they were idle or not. So that's the remote agent. In either case, using the VPN or remote agent, the employee will have to complete access to all the company resources, and if needed, the ability to print into the office or home computers. So I discussed this a little bit. We'll kind of delve into this a little deeper now. Again, this is a concern of security. Using either the VPN or the remote workplace remote agents, it's very secure as long as the organization's internal network and resources are secured. As I mentioned, that's the first thing businesses need to look at. This does not mean that the organization's current policies on the network or internet security should not be adhered to while the employees are remote working outside the office. For example, some companies just have policies. Hey, you cannot do this. We don't want you going on Facebook during business hours. Personal banking, we've had clients where they say, all right, during lunchtime, we allow social media and personal banking. Other than that, we lock it down. So we can enforce this, that all employees must constantly remain vigilant during this and when they're working remotely. So something that we've been doing, as far as my organization, we've been doing for years, is we convert our client staff to from becoming security liabilities into becoming security assets. This means we educate them on how hackers manipulate their way into an organization. They use techniques such as social engineering, email phishing scams. We're seeing a lot of this. The hackers are getting much, much smarter, and they are taking advantage of the remote workplace. Especially this is being relatively new. They're sending emails out as if they're the company owner, saying and having you click. They're doing the social engineering is where they may phone call you or, again, figure out certain characteristics of your business. They know who, for example, pays. This gets even more apparent for any businesses that are doing business with the government. That's all public record. So, for example, if you're a construction company and you just want to bid for a construction contract for a municipality, it's public information. In that information is who do they contact to pay the bill? Who do they go to for different things? And these hackers are reading these documents, and they're sending false invoices from the vendors to the government agencies. And this has been predominant. Actually, it's been predominant long before this has happened. But now that everybody's remotely working from home, it's getting more and more isolated. Again, I've always said we still have the phones to fall back on. If you suspect an email or suspect something doesn't seem right or something doesn't look right, pick up the phone and call the person and ask them if this was sent by them. This is all, again, a lot of this is being done now via email phishing. We'll get into some of how this is happening with the video conferencing and collaboration as well. With the remote workplace, it does become more difficult for the organization's network environment to control it. There are now many more access points into the company that didn't used to exist. As I said, you're opening up your network now to the outside world. We alleviate this by implementing now you must maintain strong central security within the organization's network. This should require, especially for larger organizations, the monitoring of the organization's resources and network to make sure that the software is not being installed that shouldn't be, that access isn't being gained that seems suspicious. Again, I mentioned this, endpoint protection on all the devices. some clients that aren't ours, we can't control. I highly recommend you have your endpoint protection licenses placed on every device. And as I said, if you're using it for your home, you're using your home devices as well, have that on there. Firewalls with full security access. It's not enough just, for example, to go and purchase a firewall. You have to ensure that all the security services are turned on. Most firewall, actually all firewall companies are based on a subscription model. What they do is they sell you the appliance and then force you to renew security services with them on an annual basis to ensure that you're always protected, always on. And in their defense, it does cost money to keep track of what sites are malicious, what the new and developing the signatures of virus and malware and ransomware looks like and keep up with. So in turn, they figure all this out and then upload the signatures to the firewalls on a regular basis. It's pushed. The use of strong password policies, that should be something that's always implemented. Given again with remote workplace, that's even more important because again, most organizations are allowing access in from the outside that they never used to do. So it's very, very important that you utilize strong passwords. I can't emphasize that enough. You know, one of the ones I've said over and over again, if you just have a hard time remembering a password, then use a phrase, not just a word. Movie titles, that kind of thing. You need to maintain strong control of the company data. This means now if you're accessing company shared folders, company shared files, even on Dropbox, on Office 365 SharePoint or on OneDrive, you need to ensure that you also control these directories and control access to what files. This will help minimize any damages in the event of somebody infiltrates your network. So if they come in as one employee and that employee's access is limited or restricted, you don't have to worry about the majority of your data being compromised. And again, I've mentioned this, is a well-implemented data backup and recovery solution is imperative. I've said this over and over, I cannot ever guarantee 100% the security of your network. Hackers are constantly developing, devising, and redesigning, and software companies are coming out with new software. Microsoft, for example, is releasing new operating systems on a regular basis, and I can't guarantee what exploits may or may not, or vulnerabilities may or may not exist in these. But what I can guarantee you is I can guarantee you 100% we can protect your data. Anybody can protect your data. And the biggest thing I've said this over and over again as well, yesterday's data looks a lot better than no data. So if you've at least got a backup from last night, it's going to look a heck of a lot better than if you haven't backed up at all. Confidential company data, intellectual property, I touched upon this earlier. Remote workplace now, again, you may be sharing devices or even the mere fact that you have other family members or other members, people in your household that are not office employees of the organizations. You need to take consideration in this, what confidential, what data is allowed on-site, off-site, control that as well. And then we'll get into this a little more in depth, but the video conferencing, as you can tell, is very predominant. So avoiding such things as having your monitor displayed. And yes, we've seen some people where they're doing the video conferencing and they're showing, for example, an angle from the room that they're in, and you can actually see the monitors and see what's on them, as well as the monitors in your home. So again, if you're sharing with family members, which may not be too big of a concern, but you have roommates, etc., you need to ensure that the access to what you can see is no different than, for example, you don't want your HR person having their monitor displayed in the public room with the entire organization to be able to see. So you need to also address that. The company telephone system, ensuring that there's no break in continuity. So you want to try to present the image of maintaining a seamless professional image, and especially in this, but as we expand on remote workplace, a lot of voice over IP providers are out there. They've been actually out there for a long time. Most organizations are already using voice over IP technology, or VoIP, as some of you may have heard it. And with the VoIP, the voice over IP providers, it's traditional hardwired phones are no longer needed. What you have is a phone that is connected to a network and using the internet to obtain telephone access. In most cases, voice over IP providers already provide and allow access for an internet-enabled device, such as your cell phone, your laptops, and so forth, where you can make phone calls utilizing what's called soft phones. Allowing access in some cases to the organization's internal telephone system. So it does require firewall access or remote access in. So my organization, for example, we control our phone system. It's internal, and we allow access in from the outside, and it's very controlled. And we have a lot of clients that have invested into their internal phone system. And so I can just pick up an extension right now and dial and reach an employee. Same thing with one of the two actually of our personnel, because of the we're a service organization and we do need to attend to phone calls, are working in the office, the reception switchboard, for example, and can transfer to all our employees utilizing the extensions. So the soft phones, which instead of using desk phones to work remotely, soft phones are applications that install on a PC or a laptop or a Mac device or on your cell phone that can give the appearance of being in the office and you're connected, and all you need to do is maintain an internet connection through the computer or the mobile phone. Employees can utilize the built-in microphones or speakers if they prefer, or you can purchase inexpensive headphones. A lot of the remote USB cameras come with built-in microphones. And again, a lot of this is inexpensive. When this pandemic first started, there was a shortage of cameras and headsets and so forth, but the supply chain has filled up, and it's all available. And that now gets me into actual video conferencing and collaboration. Video conferencing is a great tool for maintaining face-to-face discussions, as we're all here. It allows for collaboration, which is used to share documents and resources. So what is needed? Obviously, most of you here are already video conferencing, you're well aware. And what we are able to do with video conferencing is we're able to, one of the benefits of the video conferencing, we're enabled the socialization in what is to become a non-interactive society or workforce. So what I like about video conferencing, and I'm insisting that everybody in an organization utilize it, it adds the face-to-face component, the visual cues that are needed to converse, which will, I feel that with this remote workplace, if video conferencing is not used, that the visual cues and everything that we're used to in socializing is going to become collateral damage of a remote workplace. Again, I've got some of the tools that are used are for remote workplace, such as the WebEx, or what we're utilizing right now. We're utilizing Zoom. These tools are all, I'm trying to get the slide up here. These are all some of the tops. I'm not making any recommendation over the other. My organization itself utilizes Zoom. And there's a reason why, but one of the major reasons is the younger generations have already been attending classes online. The entire Florida university system was utilizing Zoom video conferencing for classes as well as online collaboration already, which is why when this pandemic first broke out, converting every single university student in the state of Florida, which, keep in mind, is the third most populated state in the United States, to get our entire university system onto visual video conferencing. It was done extremely fast, within 2 weeks, very effective, and has very little impact. And to get these classes online. And as most of you have experienced, if you have children at home, the public school systems has now adapted that. They've had a lot more tribulations to overcome utilizing the video conferencing. But one of the reasons that we switched, my organization primarily went with Zoom, is this is the young workforce, and this is what they're being exposed to. And if any of you know the history of Microsoft, one of the things that they still do, they have academic licenses. Quickly, Bill Gates infiltrated the school systems with their products, their Microsoft Office products, and gave it away for free or very, very inexpensively to academic organizations, because they knew when these kids grew up, got out of the university system, that they're going to be very, very familiar with these tools and force the workforce to utilize it. And so I feel as we are bringing up the workforce and hiring new employees, and as we go forward, I think it's best to keep up with what the main things are being utilized in the university systems and school systems, because this is what the future workforce is going to be very comfortable with. So what are the main differences between the applications? Again, I can't make any recommendation because as far as one to the other, for each organization, it's unique. For each need, it's also going to be unique. I'm going to quickly, most of you have seen a lot of these and maybe going, well, what is this? What is this? I can touch upon this. Microsoft Teams, one of the biggest advantages is it's very heavily integrated with Office 365 backend. If you are a wholly Office 365 organization, Microsoft Teams may be the tool for you, especially if it's for inter-office communications. You have the ability, for example, with all the chat, the email, all the users, everybody's integrated, sharing of documents, the control of the documents is all integrated with the Microsoft Teams application. It's also very, very suitable for extreme large broadcasting in very big enterprise organizations. Ring Central is another one that utilizes video conferencing. The advantage utilizing Ring Central is if you're an organization that's utilizing a Ring Central internet phone system, the Ring Central video conferencing is just an add-on to that. So as opposed to dialing their extension utilizing a soft phone, you can dial the extension utilizing the Ring Central app and enable video. WebEx, that's a Cisco product. You're going to see a lot of that in government organizations because Cisco's embedded very deeply within that. It integrates very, very well with other Cisco web products that are already utilized and being utilized. Cisco has their own phone systems, and so this is just the WebEx is just another enhancement to that. GoToMeeting is very, very similar to Zoom. We utilize GoToMeeting as frequently, and even in my organization, when we were making the decision, we were actually contemplating GoToMeeting to Zoom, and I really think that the deciding factor for us to utilize Zoom was the universities. But the reason, again, as I said, we chose Zoom for another reason, but that GoToMeeting and Zoom are very, very close, which now is going to bring me to the next
Zoom, 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 we're going to the...
So, Zoom. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of complaints that it's insecure, it has issues. I've heard people say, well, I won't use it because Zoom gives you a virus. That's not true at all. The United States and United Kingdom school systems were utilizing Zoom. They went from 10 million active users on any given day in December of 2019 to 200 million active users by March of 2020. So in 3 months, they had an increase of that. They were not prepared for this. As far as the load, their interface was not extremely intuitive. They did not consider how the average user was. Most of these, again, Facebook had the same situation. If you don't think like a bad person, you're not going to be able to come up with ideas on how to thwart a bad person. So Zoom bombing, which many of you have heard, is a phrase that's having participants take over a meeting. The voice desktop sharing collaboration, they take over. And so there's some security settings that are now the default in Zoom that weren't before. You create separate passwords for the meeting so people can't come in. You establish a Zoom waiting room, which many of you were all of you experienced today. Lock down the meeting once everybody's invited to attend and has joined. You do not publicly post meetings on social media, especially if they're private meetings, or put them in a public forum. Allow only the host, which that's the person presenting, or co-hosts such as Dave and Amanda, to share. And you can do that on the slide. You can see if you want more information, you can go to zoom.us/security. But the application itself is encrypted, is secure. The majority of this is just the way the meetings were set. By default, for example, all participants can share their screens. So when somebody came in and Zoom bombed, they were putting up offensive material and sharing it with the entire organization, taking control of the meeting. Zoom virus is another thing many of you have heard. Zoom itself does not have a virus. The Zoom virus is a generic term, much like coronavirus is affecting Corona beer sales. The two are unrelated. What it is it's a generic term used to define unwanted or malicious software, and it's proliferated under the guise of being the Zoom application. It's usually delivered through email phishing. So for example, you might get a fake email from somebody's email address that has my name, and you may think it's from me and saying, hey, I want a Zoom meeting with you. Here, click here. Most users were clicking and thinking they're downloading the Zoom application. They were getting access to their cameras and their microphones, and they were under the guise that it was a Zoom application. So again, you just need to ensure that your workforce is cognizant of what's going on, ensure that they actually start the Zoom app themselves, ensure that any meetings that they're joining are legitimate. And for those of you that want to compare the different products as far as what is out there or what's available, as far as for the products, I've got a really good website here that we use. I'm not endorsing this in any way, as far as we're not getting any paid endorsements for this. But the app, the tool, or the website, I'll bring you up to this. It's called Trust Radius, and let me share my screen on this right now for you. And Trust Radius will enable you. So, for example, the way to use trustradius.com. If I wanted to find the Zoom product, if I could spell. So I come in here, and what you want to do is you want to ensure that you go to the listings. I can hook up Zoom. It's now going to show me everything about Zoom. And down here towards, you can actually see what alternatives are out there. And if you see, there's Microsoft Teams and WebEx, etc. But if you scroll down just a little bit further, go back to the ratings, you have the ability to now do comparisons. So we can compare with, for example, I can compare it with Microsoft Teams. And side by side, I can now say, well, I'd like to also compare it with some other applications, maybe see what TeamViewer is all about. And so this Trust Radius, I don't recommend it for everything, but it's great for the video conferencing tools. So, all right, well, that ends my presentation. And if anyone has any questions, I think now at this point, Amanda's going to open it up for questioning. And you have anything there, Amanda?
No, we don't have any questions. But Mandy said great info.
So will this deck be shared with everybody?
Clinton, are we okay to go ahead and share the slides?
You're on mute.
One question if possible.
Go ahead, Otis.
On the VPN, there's a bunch of them out there. How do we decide which are best?
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
The VPN.
Oh, VPN?
Yeah, how can you decide which one is? There's a bunch of them out there when you go looking at them. Which is better?
Yeah, it's really going to depend on your needs. I off the cuff, I mean, we align ourselves with several security companies, and we do that mostly because I know these some companies well. Some of the bigger ones are Zscaler, SonicWall, and Sophos. As far as some of the retail VPNs, for example, you've seen out there where you can buy this VPN software and install it. There are a couple out there. I'm not familiar with them. We just don't use them on a business level. For me, as I said, we remotely connect up to firewalls and VPN, and so we utilize it in a central area. And some of these, again, Zscaler might work for you as well. But again, it's the minimum user license for Zscaler is 25 users. What I could do for you, Otis, is I know of a couple, and I'm drawing a blank on what they are. There are a couple out there that I know are in use on a retail level for individuals. And what you're actually doing is you're connecting up to some network into the internet, and they're secure. And then everything you do will be presented as if you're connecting up from that network. And it's very, very close to along the lines of anonymous surfing and that kind of thing. However, these organizations do keep track of what you're doing and when you're doing it. So if they are subpoenaed by the federal government, well, I'm trying to tell you, don't do anything illegal on them. Whereas, for example, the office firewalls and so forth is secure, they'd have to get a subpoena. But yeah, I'll get back to you, Otis. I'll find out what that information is. And what I'll do is I'll get it over to Amanda and she can distribute it to the group.
Clinton, Keith wanted to know if we can share the slides as well.
Yes, absolutely. I don't have any issues with that.
And Keith, yes, the questions and answers can be shared in the follow-up as well. Are there any other questions? Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Clinton. That was a really informative presentation, and we appreciate all that you've done for the Chamber. You converted us over 3 years ago, and it's really been transformational for our office, and we've really enjoyed working with you. It's been fantastic. Fortunately, last year you did bring us to a remote workplace, and so it's been very, very fortunate for us. So with that, I want to thank you, Clinton, for all you did for us today and all you continue to do for the Chamber and the community. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. All right. Great. Well, thank you. Again, if anybody has any needs anything, the information there, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll help you the best I can.